Techzine Talks, where Techzine analysts bridge the gap between IT solutions and the people who need them. Techzine is your single source of truth. For more information and insights, visit techzine.nl or techzine.eu. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast.
Welcome to a new episode of Techzine Talks. This episode will be in English because we're talking to Visma about how they keep their business applications secure. And we're going to talk today with Cindy Wubben, who is CISO of Visma Benelux, and with Espen Johansen, Director of Security. And of course, Sander is also here.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Did we pronounce your last name right, Espen?
Oh, yes, it was lovely.
Okay. Very good. That's always very important, right? Pronouncing names correctly.
Yes. Oh, yes, it's very correct. Very, very important.
I did my research.
Very good.
Yes.
So we're talking about application security in the end, and especially business applications, because Visma owns a lot of business applications, especially for entrepreneurs. Can you tell a bit about what Visma does?
Yeah, I can tell a bit about Visma does. We make software. That's one of the things we do. But we also are a highly acquisitive company, so we acquire companies. Currently at the rate of about a company a week. And we have a quite substantial footprint in Benelux, which is Cindy's territory. So the essence is that we're a technology company that makes both ERPs and different specialty softwares, both in the cloud, mostly in the cloud, to be honest, but of course also niche products for different markets.
Okay, so but let's just to start off the discussion, security of business applications. Why are we having this discussion today? Why is it necessary? Maybe also related to current trends in the world or in the markets.
And I can say something about that, and maybe Cindy can fill in. One of the things that we see so we do have something we call the Visma Security Program, which is a programmatic approach to securing the business applications. And part of that is acknowledging that there is a threat and there are different threat actors. And this is something we spend a lot of time and energy on to try to figure out who they are and how they act. Both all of their TTPs needs to be known to us to be able to understand them. And this means that there is always a threat or there are always risks for the customers that we try to mitigate. Simple stuff like removing bugs in the source code, more complex things like understanding the TTPs of the actor, understanding their behavioral patterns, and also understanding the needs of the customers so we don't interfere with them because of security. So it's not supposed to be security as an add-on, it's supposed to be just a secure product. That's kind of the end state of our process. So yes, I would highly say that security is an integral part of all parts of business applications. Of course it is, especially with the geopolitical situation as is today.
Because you see lots of things happening in terms of the supply chain or the conflict or the war in Ukraine. Is that also something that plays a role?
Yeah, it is quite interesting. Thank you for asking that, because what we have actually seen is that since we are keeping a keen eye on both the past, the current, and trying to predict the future, we actually see a quite consistent volume also after this war broke out in Ukraine. And this is quite interesting because if you don't have sensors out and if you don't do all the legwork, you might not be able to see the differences and the subtle nuances that can make a difference. So we're quite aware of this. And the programs try to assure that all the companies and all the products that we do have in Visma gets this information in time, and also that we can prepare the customers for this environments that comes.
And Cindy, for the Benelux, do you get a lot of questions about the security of your products, or what are the trends you see in this region?
Yeah, obviously we get a lot of questions from our customers. So we have a lot of different markets, and so it depends really on the market. Some customers don't ask questions at all, but our especially with the ones who are working with the government, for example, they get a lot of questions, and also with bank-related companies or markets, they get a lot of questions. And the great part of our Visma security program is that it's really helps them to show how compliant we are, or how we do it, and that gives the companies a bit of assurance that we do it on the right level, and we can actually show them on what level we participate. So that's really great of that program.
Yeah, and they're not only focused on compliance, but on actual proper security.
No,
I would always ask.
Compliance is. I'm actually my background is also part of compliance, so I'm not. So I actually like compliance also, but it's important that it's not just a check mark. So it's kind of a combination. So it's on the one hand, it's really a great way to implement it in all the products, but it's also a really good way to show and to see actually with the dashboards for everyone to see in Visma what's the actual status is. So at this moment, so not just by writing it down or something, but it's measured. So that's the great part of it.
But do you also? Sorry, just one last question to Cindy, and then Espen, please go ahead. But you mentioned that not all customers have questions on security. Mm-hmm. Would you encourage those customers to actually also ask questions? Because I mean, ideally they should, right?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of talks also, and in that talks we also invite customers to ask questions, and not only we try to explain how we do it, and also say, okay, please ask also your other suppliers how they do it. We want to be transparent, and we find it important to be transparent and to tell how we do it. But also not only the ISO 27001, because that's also I think it's also can be a really great addition to your security and the way you're working. But it's you have a lot of other things that really needs to be checked, and so it's good to kind of educate them.
So by default, people or companies should ask questions, irrespective of the industry you're working in or active in. It's always good to ask questions about the security of your applications. Yeah.
And sometimes that's also difficult, because when we get a really long list of all kinds of questions, that's also not doable for us, but also for other companies, of course.
But that's what you get when you invite people to ask questions, right? Some may actually ask questions, and then you have to answer them as well.
So we want to be open about it. So I hope that we at one point can show our progress. So that's when you have a question that you can go to. We also have a trust center, so you can look there what the current status is. We will want to expand that, so that's more easy to get that information that you want, but also we're really happy to explain how we do it.
Espen, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I have a small comment here, because I seem to remember also that in the beginning, when you started the job as a CISO, you could see lots of questions. Do you have a 27001? Do you have a certificate and stuff? But I've also seen that customers are more and more becoming aware that there is something called the statement of applicability available. So that's, at least if someone shows you a 27001, always ask for the statement of applicability, because it shows how it's implemented. And that really is, I think, a key element in what you said there, Cindy. It's because it is really important to write these policies. Yes, of course, you have to write them. But that is where the job starts. It is not where the job ends. It is when you implement that into its minute details, into, for instance, the development pipeline. How do you actually implement security into that? So hardwire it in there. So you actually have to test the source code itself to weed out all the bugs. You have to teach the developers to not make security vulnerabilities, and you have to retest these designs and architectures continuously. If you don't do that stuff, then you're left with a paper that says that we adhere to some standards. And I do remember from a time long ago, when I was a younger man, I was asked to do a 27001 certification of a company. And they only wanted to certify their sales process, because all they needed was the certificate. that could make them eligible to sell to some government agency. So that's when I stopped believing in that stuff. But I still am a firm believer in the standard. It's a good, very well thought out standard, but it can also be fooled.
Yeah, but you shouldn't only have compliance-driven security,
No.
right? I think that's the main message here. So in terms of what does it mean for Visma to have a secure product, it's both the compliance part and then what you were talking about, Espen, about actually building it in from the very foundations of the products, right?
Yeah, it's the bottom-up model. That's at least the word. We've called it ambidextrous security in the past, but it's a long and complex word. So the easy way to say it is that it has to be built in as a bottom-up and top-down model. So that's at least what we believe in, and it seems to work quite well. It's kind of difficult for people to break in, and that's a good thing. That's something we see in Bug Bounty and these other security services that we have available.
Yeah. But at the start of this podcast, you said you're buying a company a week. So you're probably buying different technology stacks because not every application is written in the same language or on the same cloud or with the same frameworks. How do you tackle that with your security? Because that also means you need different security layers or different type of security layers.
Yes, it does. I can give a small comment and then also, of course, try to kind of make it the way into Benelux in this one. Yes, we do support all modern programming languages, all different kind of tech stacks, but we are not a company that buy and merge. So we are an acquisitive company. We buy companies and they live on. So we don't merge them for the most part. I don't think you have done too many merges in Benelux, Cindy?
No.
So we do have some, of course, collaboration platforms and stuff like that. But when we do the both the monitoring and the other activities that's natural for us to do, we orchestrate that so that we improve the security of the company themselves. So as a highly acquisitive company, we basically more orchestrated like a PE, like a private equity company. So we buy these companies and we try to make them better.
So you dig into the tech stacks of those companies.
Oh, hell yes.
And enforce your bottom-up or ambidextrous, as you called it, approach to those existing stacks.
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word force. They seem to like it, to be quite honest. So it's kind of, maybe they are weird, but they kind of like it. And we have spent a lot of time and effort in building something that people actually appreciate. Yeah. So they're tested and they're given this for free, of course. They don't pay for this.
Just out of curiosity, how easy is that to do this? Because it sounds like a very difficult job.
Try to explain that a little bit, because I do this very often. So when we acquire a new company, we start with a kickoff of the security program. So I explain how it works. And we have a really, really great program designed by ourselves that helps us to implement all the tooling. So when you see it as we just say every time the Visma security program, but it's really a lot of services that are part of that program. So we show them this is the program, these are the services that you can use, and it's risk-based. So we say at first, okay, what is how important is your application? What is the data that's in that? So that's a kind of an assessment. And then we determine, okay, this is a high value product, for example, and we say then it needs to be on a certain security level. We have 4 levels, bronze, silver, gold and platinum. And most of our products are going to be in gold or platinum. So, and to do that, you have to implement all the services to get there. And this tooling helps the companies to implement all the tooling and also to get then that overview of an index. And it's like of a gamification, so it's really fun to do because it also gives you feedback about how you're doing, and it's made with a lot of fun figures like a little astronaut to help you to get a little bit of an overview, or not a little bit of an overview where you're heading and what your level at that moment is. And every time you get better and better, and at the end you're on the level that you want, and then you need to maintain that, of course. So it's not only implementation, but also the implementation of processes. So that's also part of it. So that's kind of how it works, and it really works well. So we can all see from every product what their level is and where they are.
Yeah, it's really cool, Cindy, to mention that, because also before that starts, when we do the M&A process, before we acquire the company, we also have part of the security programs that kicks in, basically analyzing the tech stack of the company, interviewing the people there, doing a normal assessment, and doing the intelligence work, like cyber threat intel is involved, and also to some extent red teaming if we need to, depending on how valuable of target it is. Do we really need to dig deep, or are the people there honest and transparent? And most of the time, they are really honest and transparent. We don't need to take off the gloves, but we have the ability to take off the gloves if we need to. That's a fun part of doing this stuff. So I do so fully agree with Cindy. It kind of works quite well, this, especially in Cindy's domain, because she's very good at what she does. And it's not as easy in all countries and all territories. So we need to have really, really skilled people for this.
To make it a bit more practical and maybe technical, I understand if you run an application on a certain cloud platform in VMs or in microservices, there's a way you can monitor this and you can put that in your security platform. But you also add things to the code of applications to get a better insight on what is happening, or how the application works, or how it secures the data or encrypts data. How far does your security program go?
I can take this, Cindy. So now we're into the realms of the shift left movement. That's part of the program. So yes, we do analyze every line of code every day. So that means that we analyze over 1 billion lines of code daily. That's part of the program. Okay. So and this feedback loop is then fed back to the developers themselves. It's a bottom-up program. So it is not me looking into all the lines of code, because that would be impossible. Not Cindy looking into all of that, but it's fed back to the developers. And one of those key learnings to make it technical enough, it is that, for instance, in the beginning when we started doing static analysis, I had this notion, since I was an old military officer, that I could just make this a compliance tool. So you should not be able to deliver a product with any known security vulnerabilities. And it has that capacity, these toolings. But I soon learned that if you don't give the developers a voice and a choice, they will not own the problem themselves. So since they are the ones who can fix it, they're also the ones in the know. So the existence, for instance, of an MD5 or a poor MD5 implementation somewhere in the code doesn't necessarily mean that there's a security risk. They might use that function for something else. But if it's a security function, they need to have a very good and decent implementation. And then they need that advice given when they are writing the code, not 1 year later when the product is delivered. So that is why this program is really deep, and it goes very deep into the code of the product themselves. Yes, it does.
Okay, and to make it a bit more practical as well, you said it's fun to implement, and they can. There's a gamification. Can you give maybe 1 or 2 examples of what they need to do to get a step further in the game?
Yeah, it starts with points. So you start with a lot of points, and every time you implement a service, those points are removed. So and to get on the right level, every level has an amount of points that you can have to be on that level. So you can easily see where the points are coming from and what application you need to implement to get rid of those points. And also vulnerabilities, for example, will get extra points. So it's kind of it all works with points, and you have to get as low as points as you can get. So you can even have 0 points. So that's obviously really good. But all the programs are based on that system, and that really gives also the developers and the security officers something they can choose. So it's not you have to do it from top to bottom. So you can choose. Okay, for my application, this part is the most important, so I will do that first. and you can choose what is best to do in your situation based on the risk.
And also just
sorry.
Just to add to that one, Sander, before we leave it, because some of the really good team leaders in this context, they basically have ceremonies when you reach different tiers. So they can basically have a beer and pizza night when you have reached a tier, or they can have some swag handed out to them. And these are just methods to make it more engaging. So the point system is called risk-based. You start with a very high risk because you are not doing any of the good security practices. And then when you have implemented all of them and shown that you can consistently hold that level for a long time, then you're a superstar, you're a rock star. You can manage on your own.
Yeah.
But how do you determine which application goes where in terms of the bronze, silver, gold, platinum layer, right? Because that's also interesting for end users to know, I think.
Yeah, we do that with together with managing directors. So it's on that level. They determine what the security risk is in that for that application. So obviously we have there a conversation about what's in it and how does it work and etc. And then we determine what level it should be. What I already said, it's normally gold or platinum, but let's say platinum is really the application with sensitive data, big customers or big a lot of customers, that kind of SaaS products. So that are actually the highest risks. So we want to take them to the best level that we can. But sometimes there is an application that's really small, that's almost end of life. There is one customer there with not really important information that can be on bronze or silver. So, but we also always look at what do we need to do for this specific application. So,
okay, and does it also play a role where the application runs? So, for example, if you have one on-premises application running in isolation somewhere, that maybe you don't need platinum, but even though it may handle some sensitive information, or
that's also in one of the things that we look at, indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it can also be that an on-prem is kind of critical if it's developed for a kind of governmental purpose and it's supposed to hold some secrets. So of course the decision has to be made locally because the locals are the ones with the contextual knowledge. The system is omnipresent, so it can be used by anyone. It's mostly designed for the cloud applications, but there are application levels. You can use it for on-premise, even benign stuff like small apps you want to make for some small purpose.
All right, so let's get on to the next topic, and we've been talking about how you make your product secure, but maybe dig a little bit deeper into the various components of how you do. I mean, I've been doing some reading on it. I heard things. I read things about intelligence-driven security, bug bounty programs, and research and data-driven security, and data as a decision maker. So lots of buzzwords and topics, and first of all, intelligence-driven security. What does it mean in your view?
Okay, I can start with this one because it's kind of one of my passions. So the intelligence-driven security, it's basically lends its purpose from Sun Tzu. So you should know your enemy and you should know thyself. So one of the primary components of the program is that you know yourself. You have a very good asset management when the program is fully implemented in a company. So when you take all of those assets, for instance, the programming language, the kind of hosting, the IP addresses, the DNS, and everything else that you need, and you start querying, you start to look into the dark web, and you start to look into the aggressor's environments, and try to figure out what is the modus, for instance, of APT29, which is a Russian actor, or what is the modus of Lazarus, what is the modus of Lapsus, and all the other actors in this field. So then you would quite instinctively know that if, for instance, Lapsus changes their modus to highlight some specific CVE that is available in one specific company, then you can raise the sense of urgency in that company before the problem becomes a problem for them. So if you don't know this stuff, you are stuck in a forever loop where you have to secure against any threat from anywhere without even knowing who the threat actors are and how they operate. So to have a good intelligence-driven security means that you actually have to understand how the threat actors work. And you also have to go slightly deeper and also understand simple stuff like, is the email address of Sander Almekinders for sale?
Probably is, but
now. So if it is for sale, what kind of consequence does that have for Sander as maybe one of our customers? Do we need to tell him that your password is being compromised? And if suddenly we can see evidence that instead of Sander, it looks like someone else is logging in as Sander, that means that in some part of the products or the programs is to implement behavioral analytics. So figuring out if Sander suddenly starts to behave differently. Well, is that an indication that there was some truth to the sale of Sander's credentials? So how do we deal with that reality? So, and we know this quite well. We keep tracks on all the aggressors. We know who's the most aggressive one, most active ones. And we also know the transaction volumes on sales of credentials. We keep track on those. And we also keep track on the pricing of these various services. So if the values in dark web changes, we need to inform our teams. And we do that in a consistent loop. So for us, like intelligence-driven security makes it possible for us to prioritize right. It makes it possible for Cindy to say to her teams that, well, right now you can prioritize innovation. This thing happening in Belgium is not very important for you because our intelligence tells us that.
So it's also quite proactive in that sense.
Oh, hell yes. Yeah. This is a key tool to be able to prioritize right with regards to spending.
And do you gather the data yourself, or do you buy the data from the bigger security vendors?
Both. And we also have loads of data ourselves that we utilize from our sensory networks.
Yeah, you probably analyze a lot of metadata, right, from your applications and the user activity, etc.
But of course we do. And any responsible adult will do that. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same as if you have an electronic lock system in your door at home. If you have it and you don't read the logs, then you don't deserve to have such a lock. Go back to a simple mechanic one. So you have to read your logs, of course you do.
Okay. Yeah, the great thing just to add, when I look at this at Benelux level, there is every week we have a threat report that people just also read just for fun. Because it's written there what the last week was happening in the world, but also we have specific reports for the Benelux, and it's all we also. What I find great about this is that we have a big team of analysts, because you can provide a tooling and I can look in that tooling, but it doesn't say anything to me or limit it, because it's obviously the expertise that you need to have to understand what is there, and so they translate it for us to actual risk or threats, and we can manage that by just following the rules that they set. So they give us also they say you have to or to prepare for this you can do this or that. And that's really great, because that really helps us to focus on what we can do, but not just only saying what the threat is. It helps us also with the solution.
Yeah, and I mean, and just moving on, there's this obviously the proactive part is and the things that you discover yourself are very important. But I've also read something interesting about your bug bounty and responsible disclosure approach, that you also do that in maybe a slightly different way than many other companies, or am I correct? Because there's much more transparency. Is that at least that's what I read?
I hope it's not unique for us, but we at least encourage transparency at all. And this is something we have learned. We also published some books on that matter. And of course, if you want to kind of share the links for those books, of course, that would be a pleasure for us. But the essence of our approach to responsible disclosure is that we encourage our customers. And also when I stand on universities and give lectures, I also ask the students to please hack us, find the bugs and report them responsibly. And this, I think, is a really, really key element for me, because if you look at recruitment in security industry, to find new people, it is quite difficult to find security experts around the world. But the ones who demonstrate moral and ethic compass by reporting bugs through responsible disclosure programs, they have a very easy chance of getting jobs, at least with me, and I'm sure with Cindy also. So it's a very good way to apply for a job. It is to actually find the bug and then report it to the company that has this bug and see how they fare. So are they able to fix the bug? And this is what both me and Cindy as leaders demand from our companies, is that you should acknowledge the bug, you should treat a reporter with dignity, and you should involve the reporter in the fix chain so that they can retest it if they want to. So of course we should honor their time.
So just out of curiosity, how many of those bugs do you get on a monthly, yearly basis? In other words, how well does your shift left approach work? When you
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we still have in the bug bounty program, I would say on average, we have a spending of around €1,000 per application per year. That's the median value. Mm-hmm. That means that if you were to look on some of those who are outriggers in our program, some of them are very expensive. So if they come in unprepared without any of this shift left process in place, that means that the hackers will find bugs galore. But if they have been through the entire process of the program, the hackers are very less likely to find bugs. But it still leaves the single most important thing unspoken about, and it is the password. Mm-hmm. The password and the two-factor. That is the one thing that the customers can help with themselves. Just choose long and broad ones. Don't go for the short, tiny ones. Go for the big ones. Big is always better when it comes to password.
I always use sentences, but I mean, that's entire sentences.
All phrases is better. Yes, I do agree. Long and thick. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So you do pay for people that report bugs then?
Yes.
Yeah, we actually see that as the final layer of our security. So we have a really great program, but still it is what is great about the bug bounty program is that it is the value of the people, because we can have in our own organization hackers in as a job, and we do have that obviously. But there are just a few people, and when we do that with the big bounty program, it is a very big group that we can't afford by ourselves when we just hire them. So that's the great thing, and there are a lot of different expertise. So we find that really as an extra layer, an extra benefit for our applications. It really works great.
Yeah,
and it also shows the good thing about the program itself, because when you don't have that in order, it's really much more expensive for us. So we don't want that.
Yeah, I think my record wasn't it $75,000 in a week? That was one of those programs who hadn't been through the entire program before. But that's also something we do to learn.
You open up these. So, for example, if you buy a new application, or you do M&A or whatever, and then so you open that up immediately to your bug bounty program.
No.
Not immediately.
Oh, okay, because I mean that would be a bit.
No, only in special cases.
Okay.
If Cindy tells me that she needs to discipline someone, we will open. But Cindy decides. So if we really need to make them move fast, it's always fun to throw the hammer at them.
So it's also a tool to actually make them understand how much more they need to think about security in their application.
Yes, it is, and it's also. I think I've stated once before that $100 saved, as $100 spent in bug bounty, is about $10,000 saved later. So if I spend $100 there for a bounty, that is fixed. That is also a massive saving, because if criminals later find that bug and exploits that bug, it is going to be so tremendously more expensive to manage that situation. So it's also why we spend so much time and effort in curating these responsible disclosures and everything else, even though it's a pain in the behind from time to time, especially when there are young and very inexperienced one-trick ponies that have found some benign things that is not important at all. And you have to spend time and energy on explaining to them that what you have found, it is not revolutionary. And by the way, you found it with an automated tool. So you didn't show any real skills, apart from, of course, the moral compass. You have told us. So
this sounds like, especially if you're doing so many acquisitions and so many new companies, this sounds like a very complicated or not necessarily expensive, but I wanted to say something in English and I forgot the word, but a very complicated way of doing things, right? I mean, why don't you just merge everything into one platform and have one basic security kind of approach? Isn't that?
How boring is that?
Doesn't that make much more sense?
No, it's just boring.
Yeah, well, boring, but boring is sometimes good, right? I mean,
I'm just being that it is not our strategy. So we are not a merge company. So it is our strategy to build and not live, or to buy and not live. And part of that strategy is very successful, I would argue. Our business is booming and it's going well. So if our strategy had been to merge everything in, our security programs would be different. Yes, they would be. But we have designed the security programs to allow for this business model. So it is complex and it is difficult, yes. And that's why we have smart people doing this. So if we had something really simple, like forcing everybody into one development language, one development pipeline, removing all the laptops and replacing them with our own, that would just be too simple. You don't want to be in that industry anymore, do you? So you have to do it. It has to be fun. It has to be some complexity in this.
But do you make the companies you buy responsible for adopting the security, or do you also have security teams within Visma who can join a company for, I don't know, a year to add those security measures also? Because I can imagine that not every application or business you buy has enough developers with security knowledge to implement everything.
Yeah, so that's why I'm also here to help them to do that, to help them to show them how it should work, and also to connect them with the very big security hub that we have in Visma, and there are a lot of experts on various topics. So when they have a problem to implement something, we can easily get help from the Visma group, and that works great. And then at the end they know how it should work and how they can do that. So they're responsible for their own security, and we help them to do that.
And we talked about intelligence-driven security, but I also have some notes here that you talked about research-driven security. Is that different, or is that a part of the intelligence security?
I would argue it's the same.
Oh, it's the same.
So it's the same, but it's also slightly different. So to make it more complex, so we have to be able to be transparent and open as a company with the big entropy we have. So I'm a big and a huge fan of doing research and publishing our experiences, and we try to do that continuously. That's also why we have written books and publish different publications, and we want to contribute to science in what we do, because there has been written no book in how to do security on a PE level. So we are part of writing that book, and we're quite proud of that narrative. So, and also part of that is to collect data in a good way. And this is also somewhere where we had the most fun when I talk to people who are very compliance driven, because I've been told by my researchers that I should never, as the security director, be part of an interview with a company, because I drive their behavior. Their bias is driven by my presence. So you could imagine if the Queen or if the monarch of Netherlands was available in a meeting with you, Sander, and they were to ask you some questions about your opinions about the monarchy. As a journalist or as a human, you might be quite biased to answer what you think they would like to know.
No, well, yeah. Well, you don't know me, but yeah, no. But I get your point. Yeah.
And this is kind of the drive behind this, is that we need to treat the data. We need to be able to publish them, because if we cannot publish them, the data might be tainted, and our conclusions might be wrong. So when we kind of publish, we get peer reviews, and that means that we are quite proud of what we do, and we just want the data to be completely transparently available for all.
Do you sell many books?
No. I don't make any money off these books.
No, but do you sell many books, or do you give them away, or?
It's just academic. It's just
free.
I think some people make money off them, but I don't. But we just make our contributions to science, and some people make money off them, but it's not me. We don't make money off books.
But the research-driven security is more to share the knowledge you have than to than to increase your own security in the end?
It's both, I would say, because when we examine ourselves through the academic methods or through the scientific methods, we also learn a lot about ourselves, and we question our own ways of doing things. Like static analysis, we have been doing that for 7 years now, I think. 7 years it is. In the beginning, it was an innovation, and most companies would stop doing something when it becomes boring, but we have just continued doing it because it's significant and it's academic proven that this is important. And some just jump from testing service to testing service and never go to the depth of really evolving it into perfection. But the science tells us that we should stay on course. So that's why we do it. And it seems to work. And
you have fun doing it, because that's one of the things that I took out of this discussion is that you have a lot of fun. I mean, and I think that's very good.
It's a keyword that has come back a few times in this podcast.
But it's not necessarily something you would associate with security, right? So I think that's a very good.
I know.
Well, you do, but I mean, maybe it's just ignorance on our part that we don't understand the fun of it. But we.
No, I love that comment, because I've actually discussed that with Cindy a couple of times, because we have been on some stages and given talks, and sometimes it's scary as hell to go on stages and talk about these things. But I think that what distinguishes the average from the really good performance is that you actually are passionate about what you do, and the fun is part of the passion. So if what you do in security is not fun, then probably you're not doing the job that you're designed to do, or maybe you should do something else. So security is fun for those who like doing security. And for me, I have a blast every day doing this stuff. This is passion.
Do all your developers like security?
Not all of them, but some of them do. And those are the ones we latch onto.
Because that's one of the preconceptions about that developers don't care about security, right? That's one of the things that you hear a lot. But
we don't agree.
It's actually fun, because obviously when I start with my kickoff of the security program, I got also a lot of I don't know if I want to do this and why and etc. But when we just do it, and then at the end everyone is happy with it. It's not a sales talk. It really is. They are happy that it's there. They see really the benefits. And also we do also a security self-assessment, and that gives a lot of information and awareness in the development team specifically, because that are the ones who have to fill that in, and that really triggers things like, oh, we didn't think about that, or we just think about that a long time ago and forgot about it, and that really helps to improve and get also to put that on the roadmap, for example, to change things in the future. Doesn't have to be solved all right away, of course. So yeah.
But
it's
they
really,
like it. Is that because of the benefits or because of the gamification you added?
No, I can.
Benefits.
It's the benefit. I would completely agree. And we also have research to show that the teams who have good security practices are also the most autonomous ones. They're also the ones who make more money. So it's actually a 2.94% increase in the annual recurring revenue on those teams. So we can actually attribute pure earnings to good security. And it's also somewhat attributable to, for instance, the lack of technical depth. Because if you have good security, you don't have technical depth anymore. So security is kind of like it's if you do that right, lots of other good things will come right. And then you're more autonomous and you have more fun.
Yeah, the engagement of the employees are also getting up. When their security is getting better, the engagement is also increasing. So it's on a lot of levels.
Yeah. So just to work towards the end of this discussion, in general, if I ask you, are your products more secure inherently than the products of your competitors? You're probably going to say yes. But I mean,
yes, of course.
And you can back it up as well if someone asks for the evidence.
Go test, have fun.
Well, yeah, I think we were discussing about the title for this podcast episode. I mean, maybe is Visma bringing the fun in application security. Maybe that's a very good
better title, yeah, probably than what did I think of? How do you add different business? Yeah, the fun in security is probably a better title, yeah.
Yeah. And the developers, they love this stuff. They love being both empowered, enabled, and insured and embedded. So that's what we do, me and Cindy. We empower them, and that's the main part of the job.
So if you're a developer and you do not agree with Espen, you're free to email us and we will send it to him.
Yes, of course.
Then you have to work for Visma and then find out yourself. That is really fun.
or try and find a bug in Visma software. That also helps if you want to
Also fine.
get in
And
touch.
they will pay you
And
for
tell
it.
us then.
We will not pay all of you, but the ones
Oh.
who are good enough will be invited into the bug bounty program, where they will be treated
Okay.
like royalty.
All right.
Okay.
And the absolutely best will even be invited for live hack events, like we do have in a couple of weeks. I think it's in Denmark this time, isn't it, Cindy? Will you join me there?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Now, thank you very much for the delighted podcast, and I think our listeners definitely learned something today, so that's always good.
Yeah, I think it was actually very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say fun.
I'm not going to say
that-
fun. No.
That's up to you. You have fun. We don't. We don't have fun. But it is actually quite interesting.
Don't work for us. It's fun.
We'll see.
You never know. All right. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Also.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Techzine Talks. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can do that with Apple, Google, Spotify, and many other services. You can also share this episode with your colleagues who like development or like security or think it's fun. And we'll be back next week.
Probably with the Dutch language.
Probably in Dutch, yeah.
Techzine Talks.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. So please subscribe, people.
Visit techzine.nl or techzine.eu. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast.